All right, well, not too long ago, and I think many of you guys can remember these days, but not too long ago, it was pretty common for churches to host Easter productions. And it'd be complete with dramatic illustrations of the crucifixion of Christ, the burial, and of course, the climactic resurrection of Christ. And the smaller the church, the more interesting it was, because the larger churches have resources, but I was always from smaller churches. And it was always very interesting because something was always going to go wrong. And the production value was always lacking. In fact, we could say it was very cheesy. Like our productions were cheesy because you had, the tomb was a paper mache. Yeah, you've been there too. And paper mache is chicken wire, and it's newspaper, and it's lots of paste. And I don't care how good you are at paper mache, it still was cheesy, all right? And then you had little Johnny, 12-year-old Johnny. He got to work the fog machine. And he just laid on the button, just wouldn't let off. And he was living his best life, just fogging up the entire church. I was like, somebody needs to get Johnny off the fog machine. But he's just having the time of his life. And then you had this cheesy $10 strobe light. And, that was supposed to go off at the right time. And I'll give you a secret, and don't tell anybody. The strobe light was probably purchased at Spencer's. All right. With church money. But you did not hear that from me. So something could go wrong in this production. The problem was that the point could get lost in the production. You've got kids doing kid things, and it's all cutesy, and all the cameras are out, and they're all, oh, look, and they're taking pictures, but they're missing the whole point of the production. The reason why the production is there, the point is being missed, and it's easy to miss the point or the purpose of the production because of all the drama that's going on. And one of the challenges of Easter productions, I'm just giving you some heads up on church information, some insider stuff, but one of the challenges was selecting Jesus. Like, if it's a small church, who's going to play Jesus? You're looking around the crowd and like, you're really not selecting, you're deselecting, right? That's what you're doing. Nope, no. He's got a beard. He's got a beard, no. And you're like, hey, I was looking at Deacon Daryl the other day, and I think, getting together in your team, I think Deacon Daryl might be able to play Jesus. The problem is that everybody knows everybody, and you know Deacon Daryl, and you see Deacon Daryl in a suit every single Sunday. And watching Deacon Daryl walk down the aisle getting beat by Jesus, even though his family is very glad he's getting beat, he's half naked. You got Deacon Daryl that's always in a suit, and now you've got to see him. There's some things you can never unsee. And now Deacon Daryl is naked in front of the church, and people are going like, this is, the point can get lost in the production. People's like, he don't look like Jesus. And then the other one's like, and he don't act like Jesus either. he don't act like Jesus. And then someone else like, man, Deacon Daryl needs to lay off the ice cream. And then if by chance you get a Jesus that's a gym rat and he's ripped, it's like, dang, Jesus got some abs, Jesus looking good. And the point is getting lost in the production. I mean, we had that problem too. We had, when we were smaller, it was like 200 people, maybe less, 200 people, somewhere like that. Where we went wrong is in vetting out our Jesuses. Because it seemed like every Jesus that we selected, after the play was over, maybe a week or two later, they made bad life choices, which was not good PR for the church. So you have Jesus walk down the aisle, and he gets on the cross, and then they lay in the tomb, and then he's resurrected out of the tomb, and then like straight to jail. You say, can we do a better job at selecting our Jesuses? And this is the funniest moment, though, that we had, and this wasn't here, it wasn't at Walker, but when we were by St. Elizabeth, Jesus goes down the aisle, he's got Roman guards escorting him, and they get him on the cross, and Sister Susan's over here, she's queued up for the song, ready to pair the song to the moment, strobe lights going. It is like the moment, and something happens, and Jesus starts to lose his footing. Little bitty platform, right, you stand on. And in the moment, Jesus has to prematurely abandon ship and jumps off of the cross. We affectionately call that the year of the jumping Jesus. jumping Jesus. But in moments like that, the point can get lost in the production. And of course, we can all understand, well, yeah, the point can get lost in the production. But the point can get lost in the production in our life. You think about holidays, anniversaries, a birthday. I bet you that we all have stories about a special day got lost because of drama that happened in the family. Someone didn't meet the expectation, and I'm upset. Now the whole day's ruined. The whole point of the day, the anniversary, is ruined because someone didn't show up, someone didn't give the gift, something didn't happen. You sit down with a kid, and people's not showing up for the birthday party, and you pull them aside and say, don't let who didn't show up stop you from celebrating your birthday. But sometimes we can let the point get lost because of the production. But it's just not for holidays. This happens every single day. Me, for you. That we allow busyness, or we allow things that have gone wrong, or we allow challenges or relationships to stop us from seeing the point of life, the purpose of life. And the point and purpose of life can often get lost in the production. For the past 3 weeks, we've been looking at a series. It's called I Am. And we're looking at 7 famous statements that Jesus made about himself. Just like it sounds, I am, and Jesus made these 7 statements to reveal who he is to the world, to the people around him. In this, he wanted people to know. These statements are very specific to the book of John. And Jesus gets to a place, and we're going to look at John 11 today. You get to study a whole chapter today on Easter 2024. But Jesus gets to a place where there's a lot of things, anger, denial, frustration, and he gets there and he says, don't let the point get lost in the production. So let's go there, let's study this passage together and see how it relates to us. Verse 1 says, now a certain man was ill. This man's name's Lazarus, and he's from Bethany. It's the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It's for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. We don't know who he spoke this to. We don't know if he just spoke it out loud. We know that John wrote this. Did he say this to John? Did he say this to another disciple? And John heard him say this, but Jesus said, oh, this illness does not lead to death. It's for the glory of God, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha, and Jesus loved her sister and Lazarus. So here you have in these 5 verses that Jesus is tight with this family. It is said that Jesus would go visit this village. When he was there, he would stay with this family. They hung out. They loved each other. Jesus had great affinity for them. It would be like you have friends and then you have friends. You have friends that you hang out with and then you have friends you vacation with. It'd be like that. It's the friends you vacation with. It's the friends that if you go to their city and they're out of town, you're able to stay at their home. You're able to go to their refrigerator without having to ask. It's like you feel comfortable with. You feel like they are family. And Jesus loved them. And you know that because it says, the one that you love is ill. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. And we know that Mary had the utmost respect for Jesus because she washed his feet with her hair. And that's gross. No, I don't do feet. I don't do feet. I think there's very few people that's eligible to be foot models. You too? I mean, I got ugly feet. I'm telling you, my family tell me you got skeleton feet. Right? So yeah, you're not lying. And we got other nicknames. I mean, I won't tell you the nicknames of the feet, but we got monkey toes. Feet are gross. Feet are nasty. And it just so happened to me, I'm mid-flight on an airplane, sitting on the aisle seat. And some lady decides to pop her dog on my armrest. I'm like, oh, no, you didn't. Now, I'm going to show you a picture just to prove that this happened. So prepare yourself. We'll show you a picture, but I'll give you a warning. When I first showed this, I tried to show this before at the Walker building, and the moment that it hit the screens, the fire alarms went off, no lie, and everybody had to evacuate the building. So everybody blamed it on me showing that picture, but I showed it for the service yesterday and the 9:30, and it didn't go off. So if it goes off, we'll see. But here it is. I'm like, what is going on right now? What is going on? It was at least she painted them. At least she's got a toe ring. So I just kind of put my arm back a little bit and gave her a nudge just to say, this is my space. But feet, I mean, she shows the respect that she has for Jesus. She's getting on her hands and she's taking her hair and wiping his feet, and his feet been walking in dust and dung and all the things, and just it shows you the relationship that they have. And they send a message to Jesus and says, the one you love is ill. He's out of town. And he says, it's not going to lead to death. Let's go on. So when, verse 6, he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place that he was. Anybody ever felt like Jesus did that after you asked for help? Kind of lingered, hung back. And after this, he said to his disciples, let's go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you're going there again? So hostility about Jesus and around Jesus is growing. Jesus is about 2 weeks from his crucifixion at this moment. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 at the most. Probably 2 weeks before he's going to be crucified. And there's animosity building against Jesus. It's coming to a point, and what they're saying is, we can't. You got to start watching your back, Jesus. Verse 11, and after saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. The disciples said, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he'll recover. But Jesus spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus had died. And for your sake, I'm glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. So Thomas, called the twin, other places it would be called Didymus, he said to his fellow disciples. So Thomas comes up and speaks to all the other 11. He says, all right, let us go, that we may die with him. Now, on Easter, and I know Thomas has got some bad things said about him today, and he gets a lot of shade thrown towards him. But in this situation, Thomas is being very brave, because what he's saying, all right, Jesus, we're with you. We're just all going to go, and we're all going to die together. Verse 17, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had been in the tomb 4 days. Number 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So he's been 4 days, kind of like we would say, you're dragging your feet. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him. But Mary remained seated in the house, and Martha said to Jesus, Lord, maybe this is a prayer that you prayed. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. You know, we have to look at this and we go, you know, Jesus previously just healed the man that was blind. Why are you hanging around? This is Lazarus, the person that you love. This is someone that you care for so much. Why did you hang out 4 days? And here's what I found in some commentary I want to read to you. Interesting. When Jesus finally arrives in Bethany, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. This note is significant. There was a well-known Jewish belief attested about AD 200 that the soul of a dead person remained in the vicinity of the body, hoping to re-enter it for 3 days. But once decomposition set in, the soul departed. John wants us to know clearly that Lazarus is truly dead and that the miracle of Jesus cannot be construed as just a resuscitation. Oh, that's interesting. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Verse 22, but even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. And Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. And Martha said, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And then Jesus said to her, and here is our I am fill in the blank statement, I am Martha, I am the resurrection, and I am the life. Not that I am about to resurrect, it's deeper than that. I am, she doesn't know this, but I am the resurrection. I breathe life into dead things. I bring things back to life. I restore things. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet he shall live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this, Martha? And she said to him, yes, Lord, I believe. I believe you're the Christ. I believe you're the Messiah. I believe you're the Son of God who's coming into the world. So here's the scenario. Jesus comes on the scene. He's outside the village. There's already been a lot of people gathering around because that's what you do when you have people that pass away. People go to the hospital. They help you mourn. They are there at the house. They hang out. They linger. It's a communal experience. That's exactly what's going on. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. And in this scenario, you have shock and you have dismay and you have anger and you have frustration and you have all of the emotions. And Martha goes to Jesus and says, if you would have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. If you would have done what you did for those other people days or weeks ago, my brother would still be here with us. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection. Do you believe that? And she says, yes, which is a huge announcement because every one of us have to come to grips that sometimes that, who is Jesus? Like, what kind of man is this guy? He's got some extreme statements that he has said about himself. And as C.S. Lewis says, he can be only one of three things. He's either a liar, a lunatic, as someone that would call themselves a poached egg, or he really is the Lord. And they had to decide, and you have to decide. And I say, Mary, Martha, John, do you believe? He said, I am the resurrection. Do you believe? Do you believe who I am? He's trying to get a point across to them. He said, I am the resurrection. Lazarus has yet to be called forth. And he's trying to get them not to miss the point in the whole drama that's going on. I want this to sink to you. I am the resurrection. So Martha goes back and she gets Mary. Mary comes out to the edge of town, finds Jesus, in verse 32 says, and when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet. Okay, she's done that before, right? She's fallen at the feet of Jesus, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? They said, Lord, come and see. It's like they bring him to the tomb. And then the next verse, Jesus wept. Jesus wept. So the Jews saw that. And the Jews said, oh, look at how Jesus loved Lazarus. He wept. So if you know the rest of the story, you know that Jesus calls Lazarus out of the grave. And he comes out really, it's amazing, awkward, all those things type of moment. And I think, if I was there, I think I would be a believer. I think that would get my attention. Would it get yours? Would you be a believer? And some did. The next passage says, and some believed, but some went and told the officials what happened. And the reason why they went and told the officials was because the point got lost in the production. So they got the Supreme Court to meet. It's called the Sanhedrin. And they get together and they say everyone's going to believe in him. And Rome is going to take away our temple. And Rome's going to take away our nation. Because they were a vassal state under Rome. Rome was over them, allowing them to occupy their own land, but they were getting ruled by Rome. And so Caiaphas, he's the high priest, he pipes up. He says, it's better for one man to die than the whole nation to perish. And from that day on, they started to plot to take his life. So Jesus withdraws. He kind of lays low for the next few weeks until Passover. And then they said they kept looking for him. And they even gave orders that if anyone should see him, to report it so that they could arrest him. So let's just go back right before he says, Lazarus, come on out of there. It says, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, when Jesus saw her weeping, Mary and Martha, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit, and he was greatly troubled. He said, where did you lay him? They said, Lord, come and see. And Jesus wept. We think it was like a little teardrop falling down his cheek. He's like trying to cover it up. No. We know it because of the context that it's not like that. When it says he's deeply moved in spirit and he troubled, the original language would mean he's outraged, he's in fury, he's angered. This word, deeply troubled in spirit, deeply moved in spirit and troubled, comes from the original word, would refer to a race horse snorting. This is one of those things where you are overcome. This is somewhere where it is a gut, like coming out of the gut. This is not I can cover this up with some shades type crying. This is like everybody is going to see what's going on, and he is very upset at what's happening at this moment. And we say, well, why is he weeping? Because the next verse says, and Jesus wept. Why is he weeping? Is he weeping because he's getting separated from Lazarus? We know better than that, because we know that the very beginning of the story, it says this is not going to lead to his death or to the separation. Now, it could be sympathy over the grief that he is seeing Mary and Martha and the friends experiencing. Have you ever cried just because somebody else was crying? Like you weren't, the situation did affect you, but it affected someone that you love so much. And when you saw them broke, you broke. Right? I know most of you think that I'm an emotional wreck. I know that because I cry up here. I don't cry a lot, though. I know you don't believe that. I cry when I say the blessing. I cry when I pray. I try to think about these things. When do I cry? When I was a kid, though, I cried when I saw my dad cry. There was something about seeing your dad cry that made me cry. My dad was a preacher, pastored my whole life that I can remember. And 12-year-old sitting in the seats that you're sitting at, looking at him, and he would get passionate about what he was talking about, and he would just start crying. And man, I'm like, my eyes aren't watering. Why are my eyes watering? And it was just seeing my dad cry that just brought a tear to my eye, and it just broke me down. So I can understand where Jesus would see Mary and Martha that he loves so much and see them crying, and then him crying because of their grief. But most scholars, let me just say this, many scholars believe that the reason why Jesus wept wasn't because of Lazarus. It wasn't because the people around him were crying. He wept because of the state of the world. That what was happening at that moment was even a reality, because that was never how it was meant to be. And that how sin steals and robs, and how it leads to death and how what we have done by opening the door in the garden and what we've allowed in the world, how that has affected the world because it wasn't to be. Jesus doesn't like the state of the world any more than we do. And we think it's natural, but it's not natural. Wasn't the way that was meant to be. Now, it may be normal, but it's not natural. C.S. Lewis said it like this: we follow one who stood and wept at the grave of Lazarus, not surely because he was grieved that Mary and Martha wept and sorrowed for their lack of faith, though some may interpret it that way, but because death, the punishment of sin, is even more horrible in his eyes than in ours. Because of what sin and death does to us. And you know that because I'm sure in your family, you've had someone affected by sin that has taken them away. And you've seen the effects of sin on your life or somebody else's life. And it hurts, and you're grieving over the destruction and the damage that it does to families. And how addictions or infidelities or lies, what it does. And Jesus is seeing the destruction, and he's not just letting a little tear drop. He's angered that this moment is even a thing in the world. Sickness isn't natural. Children with distended bellies is not natural. Cancer is not natural. Depression is not natural. Death is not natural. No one that ever loses anybody close to them, just barely, just like, oh, we're going to get over this real quick. This is no thing. No, it feels like something is missing. Because it's not natural. If it would be natural, we could bounce back so quickly. Why do we struggle with these things so much? Because it's not the way it is supposed to be. We are not equipped from the very beginning to handle these things. And what Jesus is doing in this moment, he's just trying to bring back the natural in an unnatural world. So I want to give you a little bit of glimpse. I want to give you a little bitty glimpse of what it was supposed to be like. Lazarus, come forth. And what do you see Jesus doing during his 3 years of ministry? He's teaching, he's preaching, but he's also healing. What's healings? Healings are supernatural acts above the nature. He's bringing back the super in the natural. And what he's doing is he's looking at a leper and he's saying, you be whole, go wash and be cleansed. This is how you were, that's not how you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be cleansed. Man born blind, touches him, puts mud. Can you see? Yes, that's how it's supposed to be. Not that you're blind. Sits with the lady at the well, the marginalized, hangs out with her, connects with her, calls forth Lazarus to say, this is how things were supposed to be. Here's just an idea. You think Jesus' miracles are a way to gather a crowd to go viral and to become known. They're not magic. There's not a way to get your name out there. What they are, it's a full frontal assault on decay, on injustice, and on death. It's an assault on what we brought into the world, and it is a picture of how things should be. And through these miracles, bringing back just the normal again, of how it was at one time in the garden prior to the fall, to give a picture of what it was like. But it's not only the picture of what it was like back then, it is what it will be like one day at what Jesus calls in Matthew 25, the renewal of all things. And the renewal of all things comes from the original word is apologenesia, which is a Greek word that means the Greeks believe that every now and then the world would burn up and then start up over again. And Jesus is just borrowing a Greek term to say there will be a day when the world will start over again. And I will wipe away every single tear from your eye. And it will be restored back to the way it was supposed to be. And one pastor, he compares it to a nightmare. That you've had a nightmare and you wake up, and if you've ever had that maybe you had a dream, a nightmare that something happened to your spouse or something happened to your children, and you wake up from it and you wonder, Is this real? So you go down the hallway and you open the door just to look at your children, and you go, and it says one day, this is what Jesus is referring to, one day there will be a day. This is what Jesus' miracles are trying to show us. One day there will be a time where we will go, never for that to come true. As one person said, that everything bad will come untrue. But here you have Jesus, right before calling Lazarus forward, he's making this announcement because he doesn't want it to get lost in the production. And he says this, Martha, I'm the resurrection. Do you believe? Mary, do you believe? I bring back things that have died. I resurrect relationships. Do you believe, Mary? Do you believe, Martha? And he was like, I throw the ball to you. Say, do you believe? Do you believe? He has supreme authority. I can think about it like this way. If Jesus is gonna pick fights, he picked fights with the toughest kid, didn't he? Picked a fight with death. Go through history and in every fight with death, who's won? No. It's like I have a friend, and my friend's dad told him, he said, when he was a kid, he said, son, if you want to prove yourself, just go find the biggest, baddest, just whip them. Find the meanest person and whip them, and then everybody else, they'll leave you alone. And it's like Jesus just all right, let's go. I can take it. And he did. He took it on Friday. Did he take it? And he laid him down. And they laid him down. Can you imagine on Friday what hell was doing? Party. It's done. It's over. We got him. This time got him. Saturday, party was going on, but Friday, you see Jesus, he's suspended on the cross. And you hear statements like, hey, John, take care of my mom. All right, I'm thirsty. Can I get something to drink? Father, why have you forsaken me? I bet you that they were cranking up the music a little bit on that part. It's like, yeah, we like that. And then it is finished came out of Jesus' mouth. Just imagine all hell's having a party, and then take his body and lay it in a tomb, and it's like one of those parties that don't stop, right? It goes on the next day, and it's just continuing on and on and on until early that Sunday morning, the ground began to shake, things began to change. And not only the person that said, I am the resurrected, became the resurrected king to say, I am who I said I am. And I am here to breathe life into you right now. I'm here to free you from addictions, those things in your life that you never thought you could get back from and bounce back from. Your best days are done. Your dreams are over. Relationships are over. You're defined now. You can't get back. No. And Jesus is here today and saying, no, I am. Martha, do you believe? Do you believe? I am the resurrection. I breathe life into dead things to this day. Come on. Do you believe, Martha? Do you believe, Mary? I can resurrect dead things. And he is here today saying the same thing to you and saying the same thing to me. Are there things in your life you felt like have died that would never be resurrected? How am I ever going to get my joy back? How am I going to live with peace? How can I ever face the things that I've done? I've gone too much. I've gone too far. Jesus is saying, no. Don't let the point get lost in all that production. I know you got a lot of busy and drama. You got a lot of things going on. You got a lot of balls in the air, a lot of things you're juggling. Just don't miss the point in all of the production. Because it would be a shame to live this life and not hit the target. Don't miss the point in the production. That there's absolutely, positively nothing that Jesus can't breathe life into. I am. It's a big statement. Liar, lunatic, or Lord, you got to decide. But if he is the Lord and he says, I am the resurrection, then that's good news. That is incredible news. That today he's here. And Easter 2024 can be a new day. Fresh start. Life again. Step out of the tomb. Let's go. Let's go. Every service, man, we've had people who just respond. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to do the same. I think we would waste this moment to say, man, today I believe he's the resurrection and I need him to resurrect some things inside of me. Bring life back to my spirit. Bring life back to my body. Bring life back to some relationships. I want to experience it again. And this is good for seasoned followers of Jesus, people who are just now starting to follow him. It's good for seekers, those seekers that are like, peeking over the fence, like one day, I think I'm going to make that decision. Listen, today is your one day. And it's like your heart has been pulled. You're like, I need to make a fresh start. I want to make a fresh start. This is it. That Jesus would give you the opportunity to hear, I am the resurrection. And even for skeptics, the skeptics around that scenario, that tomb of that day, to look and just to give you something to think about. Liar, lunatic, or really your Lord. So here's what I'm going to do. I just want to be super straight with you. Because I don't believe that preachers ought to play off of emotions. I think it ought to be a decision to go, emotions are part of us. I'm just saying, build this thing up and manipulate people. Just tell you what it's going to do. Just a second, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you need God to speak life into some dead things in your life. Accept him as your Savior. I'm not going to call you forward. I'm just going to acknowledge. But I do think it's important that we make a statement and say, man, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. In Easter 2024, you can walk out of here. You can sing the next few songs just with a heart of gratitude that he's breathing life into you. So if that's you, I want you to raise your hand. Just be proud about it. Yeah. All over. My goodness. Incredible. Come on, church. Come on, church. Woo! Let's go. I am the resurrection. Would you guys pray this with me, everybody in this room, for those, and we're just kind of joining in those who will be praying this for the first or rededicating their lives, but we're all doing this together. Would you pray this with me and after me? Father God, everybody together, Father God, out loud. I believe that Jesus is your son. I believe that you sent him for my sins. And I've sinned against you. I accept your forgiveness today and ask you to breathe life into me. Thank you for saving me. In Jesus' name I pray. Come on, let's say amen one more time. Yeah. Hallelujah.